Have you ever been browsing your socials, looked at a post and thought to yourself, that is one humongously over-processed photograph? I'm going to go out on a limb here and suggest that most of us have felt that way about a posted photograph in the past. If your Instagram feed's anything like mine, you probably feel that way about 99% of the uploads. But what was it about that photo that made you feel that way? Was it so oversaturated that you started bleeding from your eyes? Was it so over-sharpened that it caused a hairline crack to appear in your monitor screen? Was it so blown out that it was like looking directly into the sun and you saw huge white blobs everywhere you looked for the rest of the day? Or did it have some super obvious composited sky in it, some tornado alley storm transplanted clumsily into a photograph of rural Oxfordshire, the photographic equivalent of René Magritte's iconic painting, The Son of Man, if you will? When it comes to post-processing an image, where are your personal boundaries? At what point do you start feeling like you might have pushed things too far? Do you only ever crop? Or do you like to drag those sliders kicking and screaming all the bloody way up to 11? How much processing is too much? I've never seen it explicitly discussed, but it does seem to me like there's an unspoken understanding between photographers as to what constitutes reasonable post-processing. Amongst landscape photographers, anyway, it's probably a very different story for boudoir. Seems to me like there's almost this brother/sisterhood of photographers who implicitly understand what is and isn't considered reasonable. Like salmon who instinctively know a return to the river they were spawned in, birds that navigate their way across continents, and chocoholics who can always locate the hidden biscuit tin. Most hobbyist photographers just know. We weren't handed a rule book. We didn't attend any orientation meetings. We weren't taught a secret handshake and sent on our way. But we still just seemed to know. So I thought it'd be cool to talk about the unwritten rules as I understand them. And it'd be great to hear from you guys as to what your personal boundaries are too. Now, before we get into this, I'd just like to get the usual bullshit out of the way. Yes, it's a digital image in the first place. Yes, the way it looks depends entirely on the camera and lens combination, and even with raw images, the camera is doing some processing. No, there is no 100% accurate way of recording a scene, and yes, all digital photographs are a kind of approximation, not some mirror-perfect rendition. Straight out of the camera is a lie. Yes, all editing options are a simple matter of artistic choice, and if someone wants to turn the saturation slide up to 100, that's their prerogative. No, it's not gatekeeping. We're talking amongst friends here. We good? Nice. Since most photographers shoot RAW these days, the main non-destructive sliders that you get inside every RAW editor are, it's fairly obvious, fair game. White and black point, color warmth, highlight, shadows, all the usual suspects. But, and this is a big but, a good excuse to turn a phrase, the number one rule in the Unwritten Rules handbook, less is more. The idea is to use those sliders to make your RAW look more like the scene you witnessed with your own two eyes, not to embellish it in any way. If you're an advocate for the unwritten rule book, then you're striving for realism. If the sun is blown out and dropping the highlight slider all the way to the left brings some detail back, then that's fair game. If the camera chose the wrong colour temperature and your golden hour looks bluer than Papa Smurf's bell end, then it's fine to warm things up. But the unwritten rule of post-processing is that the vibrance and saturation sliders are to be treated as if they are radioactive. Use them as sparingly as possible because nothing's likely to raise an eyebrow amongst the brother/sisterhood of photographers than a photograph that looks like an LSD hallucination. In case you need some help remembering that piece of advice, I had ChatGPT write a little rhyme. It came up with this masterpiece. A subtle change brings beauty clear, in moderation, perfection's near. Thanks, ChatGPT. There are some singularly amazing photo editors on the market these days, but they do rather tend to encourage photographers to play a bit hard and fast with the truth. Luminar Neo, I'm looking at you. The second big unwritten rule of post-processing is thou shalt not plump. Yes, composites are the enemy of realism. It is mind-bogglingly easy to do a near-perfect sky replacement these days, but it's a big no-no because it's faker than Trump's tan. If the sky was shit on the day you took that photograph, tough luck. Go again when it isn't shit. If the storm you chased and photographed didn't have any lightning bolts or tornadoes, oh well, hope you get lucky next time. Adding pretty much anything to a photo, from a fake sun ray to a leaping dolphin, is considered terribly bad form, old chap. Then we come to the subject of dust and dirt, and I'm pleased to say that pretty much everyone accepts that this is perfectly okay. This is because you're not altering the photograph, you're simply tidying it up. Nobody complains when an old painting gets restored, a layer of grime and filth removed from that canvas, because they're simply returning it to its original form. I reckon photographs are the same. Hot pixels, high ISO noise and dust spots are all fair game in the unwritten rulebook. Now, here's a contentious one that always causes a spat whenever 3 or more hobbyist photographers are gathered together: bracketing. The argument is that a camera sensor hasn't been made yet that can capture the full range of dynamic light in a demanding scene. Therefore, as long as the photographs are taken immediately after each other, bracketing, combining exposures, is acceptable. When done carefully, blended exposure shots can look perfectly natural, but bracketing gets contentious when the word HDR starts getting thrown about. Personally speaking, I'm not a fan of that heavy HDR look, but there are many ways of blending exposures that don't look like you're using AutoCAD for your post-processing. If you're merging an exposure or two to try and make the photo look as realistic as possible, then as a Mandalorian, but only one who's obviously bathed in the living waters of Mandalore, might say, this is the way. Sometimes it's as simple as taking one shot for the sky and one shot for the landscape, and then using a simple graduating mask to blend the two together. As big of a fan of the unwritten rules of post-processing as I am, it's always advisable to keep your opinions to yourself. If someone's posted some heinously over-processed photograph, then that's entirely up to them. You're allowed to think bad thoughts about that photograph, but unless the photographer has specifically invited commentary, you shut your whore mouth, because they may not be a fully paid up member of the old brother sisterhood. But there's also another reason to keep your views to yourself, and that is quite simple. It might not actually be over-processed. Some photographs look more saturated than others because of the colour profile the photographer used. Sometimes an outrageously colourful sunset was exactly that. Long exposure photographs also tend to look oversaturated before you do anything to them at all. Sometimes an outrageously amazing image is simply an example of good work by the photographer and not Luminar Neo. So save yourself from looking like a prize prick and either try offering a supportive comment instead or, shut the fuck up. So those are, as far as I'm concerned, the unwritten rules of post-processing. 1. Modest use of raw sliders. 2. Composites are for art, not photographs. 3. Dirt and dust is fair game. 4. Honest exposure blending is fine. 5. Don't make assumptions about other people's post-processing. I guess they're the written rules of post-processing now. Damn it. Alrighty guys, that'll do it for this one. Hopefully I haven't stirred up the old hornet's nest with this one, and we can all agree on my eminently sensible rules. I would love to hear what you guys consider fair game. Are you a hardcore, straight out of the camera nerd, or are you the kind that puts rainbows and sharks with head-mounted lasers in their shots? Let me know down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this vid, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more chin-stroking and thought-provoking content from me. Till the next time, guys. Ta-ta. No, it's not gatekeeping with... Sound like gatekeeping. We don't want to do that.